Hello everyone. So today I wanted to take a quick chat and talk about invasive species with you. And so essentially an invasive species is a plant or an animal that is not native to an area. And a lot of the time plants are introduced to different areas as invasives through landscaping. People like the way a plant looks and they bring it into their yard, and eventually the seeds can disperse and allow this plant to overtake a very large area. And because these plants are not native to the ecosystem that they're in, they usually don't have any natural predators. And because of this, it allows the plant to grow unchecked and essentially overtake entire ecosystems. And so because they overtake ecosystems, this essentially changes the ecosystem, and it changes the composition of plants and animals, and it can even change the soil content as well. And this reduces the biodiversity of an ecosystem. And biodiversity is the amount of species present and the amount of individuals of each species that's present. And so, because each species, each animal has its own role in the ecosystem, changes to the biodiversity can have detrimental effects to an entire forest, an entire wetland, a river. And today, May 22nd, is National Biodiversity Day. And so it's important that we take a look at invasive species and what we can do to minimize their impact and minimize their spread. Here at the Nature Center, unfortunately, we do have a few types of invasive species, and the first one I'm going to show you today is buckthorn. Buckthorn is a multi-stem woody shrub that was thought to originate in Europe, and it was introduced here as a landscaping plant to act as a windbreak for different areas and around farm fields. And essentially what buckthorn does is it creates a very dense understory of the forest, which tends to be about 3 to 4 feet tall. So if you look behind me, all of this plant right here is buckthorn. And it overshades and outcompetes native wildflowers that are growing there. This right here is a pretty small buckthorn plant, and it gets its name because it has these false barbs on the stem. They're not true thorns. Biodiversity of frogs and amphibians here at the Nature Center. One thing that we've been doing to combat buckthorn is we have brought in goats to clear the area. And goats are a natural, low-impact way to treat buckthorn because the only really effective way to do it in a short period of time is with different types of pesticides like Roundup. But we've been treating this area for 2 years, bringing goats in, having them eat the foliage, and we plan to have them come in again this year. And according to studies, it takes about 3 treatments of goats in order to effectively clear an area. But this area right here, you can see how clear the understory is. It used to look like this, all covered up with no wildflowers, no vegetation on the bottom. And so goats have done an amazing job here at the Nature Center. Here at the center, we also have another type of invasive species. This one is a wetland reed grass, and it's called Phragmites. And Phragmites can grow up to 18 feet tall, and they're very iconic in the way that they have very large plumes at the top of the grass. And so Phragmites has such a large biomass, and at the end of each growing season the reeds die, and so this leaves a lot of dry tinder, and so Phragmites can be very prone to fires. Another thing about it's a very iconic grass, and you can usually see it from the road when you're driving. And so when you're driving, if you keep a lookout, you'll probably find some Phragmites in wetter areas. So another plant that we have here at the Nature Center is called moneywort. And essentially moneywort is a perennial creeping ground cover. And you can see that it gets its name because of the circular leaves that grow on it, and they kind of look like pennies, so it's called moneywort. And moneywort forms a dense ground cover on the understory of a forest, which usually chokes out other plants from growing there too. So the last plant I wanted to talk about today was garlic mustard. And garlic mustard can grow in full sun or full shade, so it's a very competitive plant. But this is what it looks like. It gets its name garlic mustard because if you mash up the leaves, they smell a little bit like garlic. And what garlic mustard does is it secretes a toxin which prevents other plants around it from growing. And the seeds of the garlic mustard, it can produce about 5,000 seeds each year, and the seeds can remain viable in the soil for up to 5 years. So once this plant is established in an area, it's pretty hard to get rid of. But one of the telltale signs when you found garlic mustard is an S-shaped curve to its stem. You can see how this one goes a little bit like that. That S-shaped curve will really help you identify this plant. If you want to be involved in the prevention of invasive species invasion, familiarize yourself with Wisconsin's prohibited list and report any sightings to invasive.species at wisconsin.gov. This is a great way to help inform conservationists of different species invasions, and it's a good way to get outside and help our ecosystems.